Okay, so picture this. You wake up in a bathtub full of ice, and there's a note telling you to call 911.
Oh, no.
Yeah, right? And you reach behind you, and you discover a tube.
What?
Turns out you've become the latest victim of an organ-stealing ring.
Oh, gosh.
Thankfully,
That's
there's
good.
just an urban legend, the kidney heist urban legend, but it's totally false. But
Right.
it is incredibly sticky, and that's what we're looking at today on our deep dive into Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath.
Okay.
We're exploring why some ideas, even false ones, stick in our minds, while others, often important ones,
Right.
just vanish like smoke.
Yeah.
We'll uncover the secrets to making any idea unforgettable and impactful, from business strategies to, important life lessons.
It's so fascinating, isn't it? Like, I feel like we've all encountered those, like, terrible ideas that somehow, like, take root in our minds.
Right.
And then these brilliant ones that we hear,
Yeah.
and they're just, like, gone immediately.
Yeah, they're gone.
The kidney heist is, like, such a perfect example of that, right? It's
Yeah.
so gruesome and unlikely, and yet we all, like, understand it.
Mhm.
We remember it. We can retell it.
Yeah.
And that's really the essence of stickiness. Like, that's what we're talking about when we say an idea sticks.
It's true, and we easily remember that outlandish tale, but something important, maybe like a financial strategy or, any kind of strategy to improve our lives, that might go in one ear and out the other.
Exactly.
So why is that?
Well, the Heath brothers, what they pinpoint is that the idea of stickiness really comes down to an idea being understandable, first of all,
Okay.
but also memorable. So it's got to stick in your mind.
Okay.
But then the third part of it is it also has to be effective in changing thoughts or behavior.
Okay.
So it can't just be something that you understand and remember.
Right.
It actually has to be something that has impact on the way you think or act.
It's about impact, not just,
Totally.
So-
Not just, yeah, exactly. Not just cleverness. And they use this, I think, a really great example. They talk about the Center for Science in the Public Interest, the CSPI.
Okay.
Do you remember this? They had a campaign against movie popcorn.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
That was big.
Yeah, they revealed the crazy amount of saturated fat in movie popcorn.
Right, but how do you make a number like 37 grams of fat meaningful
Right.
to the average person? Like
Exactly. That's exactly it. And that's where this idea of the curse of knowledge
Yeah.
that they talk about really trips us up.
Okay.
We, as informed individuals, like, we forget what it's like to not know something.
Uh-huh.
So to most people, like 37 grams of fat, like, what does that even mean?
I don't know.
You know?
I know it's bad.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
is that a little or a lot?
Right. I don't know.
It's really hard to know.
It's like that, they always talk about that experiment where you tap out a song on the table and you think the listener's going to recognize it. Uh-huh. But they just hear random taps.
Yeah.
Because you have the melody in your head.
Exactly. You have all this information that
Yeah.
the listener's missing.
Right.
And so for them, it's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And it's the same with this. Like, the CSPI, they needed to take that abstract number and
Yeah.
translate it into something that was vivid and relatable.
Yeah.
And the solution they came up with, I think, was so brilliant. They basically said, okay, well, one bag of movie popcorn
Uh-huh.
is the equivalent of eating a whole day of, like, the greasiest meals you could possibly imagine.
Oh, wow.
So bacon and eggs, a Big Mac and fries for lunch, a steak dinner with all the fixings, like
oh, man.
the works.
Yeah.
And the popcorn had more artery-clogging fat than all of that combined.
Oh, wow.
And that's an image that stays with you.
It
Like,
does. Yeah.
it's not just
It's very concrete.
it's
You know,
very
very
easy to visualize.
Exactly. You can see it. Yeah. And that's the point, right?
And it worked. The media went wild with this story.
Mm-hmm.
People actually stopped eating popcorn.
Wow.
Some theater chains ditched coconut oil.
Oh, wow.
And it just goes to show you that even a topic that you might think of as kind of boring,
Right. Or dry.
yeah, or dry or whatever,
Yeah.
you can make it sticky with the right approach.
Yeah.
And the popcorn example is really great because it perfectly highlights two of those key principles that we'll be talking about today, right?
Okay.
So concreteness, which we just mentioned, but also this idea of unexpectedness, because, it wasn't just about the facts. It was about framing them in a way that grabbed attention
Right.
and resonated emotionally with people.
Okay.
And that's really what we're aiming for, right? When we want to make an idea stick,
So the Heaths provide this framework for creating sticky ideas
They do.
called the Success formula, which I'm so glad because it's an easy acronym to remember.
Right. Very handy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
SUCCES. So that breaks down into 6 key principles. Simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, and stories.
That's it.
Okay, and we just saw all of that in action with the kidney heist and the popcorn example.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's unpack those principles one by one.
Let's do it.
So, simplicity. This is first.
Okay.
And it's not about dumbing things down.
Right.
It's about finding the core of your idea and expressing it concisely, right?
Yeah, it's getting to the heart of it.
Yeah, so think of proverbs. Like short, powerful, and packed with meaning.
Exactly.
So if you think about Southwest Airlines, their core message isn't about friendliness or safety, which a lot of airlines go with. Yeah, it's we are the low-fare airline.
That's it.
And that simple phrase guides every decision they make, from marketing to onboard service.
Right.
It's a perfect illustration of how a simple message can have a powerful impact.
Totally. And that clarity, I think, is so important. Yeah. Especially for a large organization.
Yeah.
It's like, having that, North Star that everyone can follow.
Yeah, it's like a commander's intent in the military.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that overarching goal that guides everyone, even in chaos.
Yeah, and it helps overcome decision paralysis, right?
Oh, totally.
Like in a world that's overflowing with choices,
right.
A simple core message can really cut through the noise, and the Heaths even highlight how Bill Clinton's 1992 campaign strategist, James Carville, famously used this. He had this sign in the war room that said, "It's the economy, stupid."
I remember that.
Just to keep everyone focused on that message.
Right, yeah.
Simple, but really effective.
It is.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see how this applies beyond just, marketing or campaigns.
Totally.
It's any type of communication, from teaching a class to writing a report.
Absolutely, yeah.
But what about when you have, complex information? Can you really boil everything down to a proverb?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And that's where the idea of schemas comes in.
Okay.
So these are kind of mental frameworks that we use to understand new information.
Okay.
Think of them like mental shortcuts that help connect new knowledge to something that you already know.
Okay, so explaining a pomelo.
Oh, perfect, yes.
It's easier to say it's like a giant grapefruit than listing all of its botanical features, exactly.
Because people already have a grapefruit schema in their mind.
Schema, exactly.
I like that word, schema.
Schema, yeah.
Schema, okay.
Yeah, they're great. And analogies are really powerful schemas.
Yeah.
Like if you say die hard on a bus, instantly you know what speed is about.
Yeah, I got it.
And so...
I do. That's good.
Yeah.
That's a really good analogy.
So using familiar concepts and comparisons...
Right, to really make complex information more digestible.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm starting to see schemas everywhere now.
They're everywhere once you start noticing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how does this work in practice? How do you actually...
Well, so the Heaths point to this, I think, surprising finding about Asian math classrooms.
Okay.
Which are known for, high performance.
Right. Very high performance.
And actually, they focus on fewer problems.
Oh, interesting.
But they go into them in greater depth.
Okay.
They use concrete examples. They have the kids manipulating objects.
Wow.
They connect the math to real-world scenarios.
So it's not just about memorizing formulas.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the concepts in a tangible way.
Exactly. That
reminds me of that other principle, concreteness.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember the Heath saying something like, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, is more memorable than
the abstract equivalent of that.
Yeah.
Which is take advantage of present opportunities.
Yes. And they're saying the same thing, but one is
much more memorable.
Yes.
And that's exactly it, right? Concreteness makes ideas stick. We remember that CSPI campaign because of those shocking visuals of greasy food.
Yes.
And that made this kind of abstract concept of saturated fat very tangible. And remember the example of the safe night out, where accounting students learn by helping their fictional friends launch a business.
Yes.
And they're grappling with real-world challenges, like fixed costs and cash flow.
It's like learning by doing.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm getting how finding the core message and making it concrete is super important.
Yeah.
But how do you even grab people's attention in the first place?
Right. Well, that's where unexpected comes in.
Okay.
Because our brains are wired to notice change and novelty.
Right.
So if you want to make an idea stick,
Mm.
you have to kind of break the pattern
Uh-huh.
and surprise your audience a little bit.
Yeah. So our brains are constantly predicting what's coming next.
Exactly.
And then when something unexpected happens,
Yes.
it throws a wrench into those
It
predictions.
throws a wrench in, yeah.
And so we have to.
And we're like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's like those moments in a movie where you're
Yes.
like totally caught off guard
Exactly.
by a twist.
And you're like, whoa, I did not see that coming.
Okay, but the unexpected element can't just be random.
Totally.
It has to serve the core message, right?
It has to have a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can't just be a gimmick.
It can't just be a gimmick. It has
It
to.
has to have substance.
Yeah.
Like that example, I think, is a flight attendant who made a,
Yeah.
typically boring safety announcement.
Right?
Hilarious by comparing the seatbelts to, like, cars from 1965.
Yes. Yes, I remember that.
Like, it was so funny and unexpected, but it got the point across effectively.
Right.
So
So the element of surprise gets them
it gets you to pay attention.
to pay attention. But then,
Then it's curiosity that really keeps people engaged.
okay, so now I'm curious
Oh,
about this idea
yeah.
that the Heaths talk about, the gap theory of curiosity.
The gap theory.
How does that work?
So it suggests that our curiosity, like, stems from knowledge gaps.
Okay.
So it's this realization that we don't know something.
Okay.
And think about, like, movie trailers,
Uh-huh.
right? They're a perfect example of this.
Right.
They give you just enough information to pique your interest,
Uh-huh.
but they leave you wanting more.
Right. Or those local news things where
Yeah.
it's like a hidden danger in your home could be deadly.
Details at 11. Yes, exactly.
Right.
Create that need to know.
Yeah. But if they revealed too much information.
Right. It would kill the curiosity.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly. So it's a very delicate balance.
Right.
The key is to highlight what's missing
Uh-huh.
without giving away the solution. And so one of the examples that they use is Roone Arledge, who really revolutionized sports broadcasting.
Okay.
He realized that most viewers didn't really have the context to understand and appreciate, like, all these different games.
Right.
And so he started showcasing, like, the rivalries between the teams, the players, the history, the fans' passion,
Yeah.
all of that context.
Yeah. And I've gotten into sports that I knew nothing about
Yeah, me too.
by just hearing those backstories in that context.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant example of how, like, context drives curiosity and engagement.
Okay.
And so by, providing that missing information,
Uh-huh.
he actually created these intriguing gaps
Okay.
that made viewers really invested in the outcome.
Right. Right. Okay.
And you can apply this principle to, anything, whether you're teaching a class, pitching a product,
Right.
even telling a story to a friend.
Okay, so we've seen how unexpectedness can grab attention and how knowledge gaps fuel curiosity. But how do you use those principles to motivate people to actually take action?
That's a great question.
And, like, is there a way to harness that curiosity and
Yes.
turn it into
Absolutely.
something more?
That's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore how these seemingly impossible goals, like Sony's pocketable radio or JFK's Man on the Moon,
Okay.
really sparked curiosity on a massive scale
Okay.
and inspired people to take action. So stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive into Made to Stick.
Okay, so we've seen how to make ideas simple, unexpected, and concrete.
Yes.
But how do you make people believe those ideas,
It is-
even if you don't have a Nobel Prize or a celebrity endorsement?
That's where credibility comes in.
Okay.
Giving our ideas weight,
Yeah.
making them believable. And it doesn't always mean that you need tons of statistics or expert opinions.
Right.
Sometimes the best way to do this is to actually let people test the idea for themselves. The Heaths used this great example from Ronald Reagan's 1980 campaign.
Okay.
Instead of overwhelming voters with economic data,
Right, which is what a lot of people do.
Right, which is, it can be very dry and hard to follow.
Yeah.
He just asked a simple question.
What was it?
Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It makes you stop and think, right?
It does.
It forces you to actually evaluate your own experience
Uh-huh.
instead of just accepting someone else's word for it.
Yeah, instead of just listening passively.
Right. And it was a really powerful way to build credibility
Right.
without relying on, complicated arguments.
Okay.
And it really gets at this idea of what the Heaths call testable credentials.
Okay.
It's about giving people a way to verify the idea without just blind faith.
So it's like Showing versus telling. Or,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It's
quite
like, don't
nice.
just take our word for it.
Right.
Try it yourself.
I remember they gave an example from that old Wendy's Where's the Beef campaign,
Oh, yes, that's a classic.
where they visually showed.
Right. They showed the competitors' burgers with these huge buns and
Yeah.
tiny patties.
Like, where's the beef?
Exactly. It's like, see for yourself.
Yeah.
We're not making this up.
Right.
You can go to any fast food joint and see the difference for yourself.
Yeah. Okay. And sometimes even,
Yep.
you know, small, vivid details
Yes.
can add a layer of believability. Like,
Absolutely.
I know the Heaths talk about this study where people were more likely to believe a claim about a dangerous product
That's interesting.
if it included a specific detail,
That makes sense.
like a sensory detail,
Yeah.
like, you know?
Yeah, because saying this product has caused injuries
Right.
isn't as impactful as saying this product has severed fingers,
Right.
right? It's not pleasant to think about.
No.
But
it makes it more believable.
it does. It does. It taps into that, like
Right.
natural tendency to remember vivid and concrete information. We connect with stories, not just abstract statistics.
Right.
But there's another element that plays a huge role in making ideas stick,
Yeah.
and it goes beyond logic and credibility.
Emotions.
Emotions, yes.
I can see how logic alone isn't always enough to persuade someone.
No,
We need to make people feel something
absolutely.
if we want our ideas to stick.
And that doesn't mean manipulating people's emotions
Yeah.
or resorting to like cheap tricks.
Right.
It's about connecting with like their values,
So-
aspirations, and fears.
So, like, that anti-smoking campaign that didn't focus on the long-term health risks,
Yes.
but instead it tapped into teenagers' dislike of being controlled by big tobacco companies.
Exactly.
So instead of smoking will kill you, it was don't let these corporations control your life.
Yes, perfect example.
Yeah.
It reframed the issue in a way that resonated with like a core teenage value, independence.
Right.
It wasn't just about health anymore. It was about fighting for control.
Right. Taking a stand.
Exactly. And sometimes it's about finding like the right emotion to target.
Okay.
And they have this example of the children's charity that was struggling to increase donations.
Okay.
And initially they focused on the like vast number of kids in need,
Right. But that's...
but it didn't really elicit a strong response.
It's hard to connect with a statistic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then they shifted to focusing on a single child's story,
Okay.
sharing her name, her photo, her specific needs,
Okay.
and donations increased dramatically.
Wow. Okay.
So it's kind of like the Mother Teresa principle.
Okay.
If I look at the one, I will act.
Right.
We connect with individuals much more strongly
Yeah.
than we do with abstract groups.
It's like that saying, a single death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic.
Exactly.
And stories help us connect with that
Yes.
individual experience.
Yes, and that brings us to the last principle of the success formula, stories.
Stories. And we all love a good story.
We do.
They capture our attention. They transport us to different worlds. They make us feel things. But why are they so effective at making ideas stick?
Well, the Heaths describe stories as kind of mental flight simulators.
Okay.
They allow us to experience the consequences of our actions
Mm.
without actually having to live through them.
Right.
So we can learn from those experiences.
Yeah, and make better decisions.
Exactly.
It's like firefighters.
Yes.
Swapping stories after every fire.
Exactly.
You know, they're not just reminiscing, they're actually learning from each other's experiences, preparing for future challenges.
And the book talks about this study
Okay.
where people were more likely to remember information that was presented as a story
Okay.
compared to just like a list of facts, because
Yeah.
the story gives the information context and emotion.
Right. So stories help make information more engaging and relatable.
Exactly.
But do they have to be super complicated or dramatic?
No, not at all. And actually, I think the most effective stories are often very simple and relatable. Take the story of Jared the Subway guy.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right, an average person who lost a lot of weight eating Subway.
Yeah.
Simple, credible, and inspiring. Right.
And believable because it
Right.
was just like, you know, a normal
Yeah, regular guy.
person's experience.
Exactly, exactly.
Not
Yeah.
some hyped up marketing
Right.
campaign.
And stories also provide a framework for understanding complex ideas.
Okay.
So they give us characters to root for, conflicts to engage with, and resolutions to learn from.
So instead of dry lectures on, business, you could use case studies
Yes, perfect example.
that follow real companies facing real challenges.
Much more engaging and memorable.
Would-
Students can put themselves in the shoes of the decision makers.
Right.
And learn from their successes and failures.
So we've covered all 6 principles of the success formula.
We have.
Simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, and stories.
Yes.
It's like a toolkit
It is, yeah.
for making any idea sticky.
Absolutely. Whether you're talking about launching a product, teaching a lesson, or even, saving the planet,
Yeah.
these principles can apply.
And we've seen them in action.
Yeah.
We started with that bizarrely sticky
We did.
kidney heist.
Uh-huh.
But we've seen how these principles apply to, scientific breakthroughs,
Yes.
business strategies, life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
We've learned from Southwest Airlines,
Yeah.
Bill Clinton's campaign, ESOP,
Yeah.
the Nature Conservancy, even the Where's the Beef campaign.
That's right. All sorts of different.
And we've explored the curse of knowledge,
Yes.
the gap theory of curiosity, the power of schemas,
Schemas.
and stories, and how concreteness bridges that gap between understanding and action.
Absolutely. And that's really key.
Okay.
Because we want to move beyond just, passively absorbing information
Right?
to actually making meaningful changes.
Okay.
And that's what we'll explore further in the final part of our deep dive into Made to Stick. So stay tuned.
All right, so welcome back. We're wrapping up our deep dive into Made to Stick and how to make ideas not just memorable,
Right.
but truly impactful. We've talked about all those different elements of the success formula.
Yeah.
But now I want to kind of dive deeper into concreteness,
Okay.
because I feel like it's more than just making things easy to understand.
You're absolutely right. Concreteness is really key, I think, to sparking curiosity and driving action.
Okay.
Think about Aesop's fable, the fox and the grapes.
Okay.
The fox, unable to reach the grapes, dismisses them as sour.
Yeah, classic.
Classic story about rationalizing our failures.
Right, but what makes it so memorable, though?
It's those vivid images.
Right. The fox and the grapes.
The fox, the grapes, the sour grapes.
Yeah, so that's concreteness at work.
Concreteness at work, exactly.
Okay.
And the Heaths point out that this is how you can combat the curse of knowledge.
Okay.
Instead of abstract jargon, we need to express ideas in terms of tangible actions and sensory experiences.
So it's not synergy and all those other words that...
They even have this funny example
Yeah.
of a website that generates meaningless business buzzwords,
Uh-huh.
like reciprocal cost-based engineering or customer-oriented visionary paradigm.
Oh, God.
It's like, what does that even mean?
This sounds impressive.
It sounds impressive, but it's meaningless.
But it's fluff, right?
It's total fluff. Yeah, it's like trying to build a house on a foundation of clouds.
Yeah.
You need something solid, something concrete to make it work.
Right.
And they give a really compelling example from the Nature Conservancy,
Okay.
which works to protect environmentally sensitive areas.
Okay.
And they face this challenge of, how do you communicate the importance of preserving these vast tracts of land?
Right, which are hard to even visualize.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
So how do you make it concrete?
So how did they make it concrete?
Well, initially, their focus was on what they called bucks and acres.
Okay.
So it was very straightforward.
Right, so a big donation
Big donation buys a big piece of land.
by the big piece of land. Okay.
But when they started moving towards, less tangible strategies like conservation easements and policy changes.
Yeah, less concrete, right.
Less concrete. They lost that.
Yeah.
And people are like, wait, what am I actually giving to?
Right. So they needed a new approach
They did.
that had that tangible element.
Exactly. And so what they did was they moved away from acreage and started focusing on landscapes.
Okay.
So a landscape is like this, defined area with unique features.
Okay.
It's much more tangible than just a number of acres.
Okay.
And they even started giving the landscapes names, like the Mount Hamilton Wilderness or whatever.
Yeah, wow.
And suddenly, you have something that people can picture,
Right.
right? A place with a name, a story, and identity.
So it's no longer just about saving a certain number of acres.
Exactly.
It's about protecting this specific, unique...
This place.
Mhm.
Exactly. It's like giving people a mental postcard
Right.
of the place they're helping to protect.
I like that.
And the Heaths call this the Velcro theory of memory.
Okay, the Velcro theory of memory.
So concrete ideas have more hooks, more sensory details, more connections to our existing knowledge.
It's like the difference between remembering a random string of letters versus remembering a meaningful word.
Exactly.
Right. The word has more connections to your memories and experiences.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so it
It
sticks.
sticks, yeah.
And concreteness plays a crucial role in education, too.
Absolutely.
They highlight the difference between Asian and American math classrooms.
Yeah.
And contrary to popular belief, Asian schools don't just emphasize rote memorization.
No.
They focus on making math more concrete.
Exactly.
So instead of just abstract formulas, they
Mhm.
use manipulatives, real-world examples. They encourage students to explain their reasoning.
Yeah.
So it's not just about getting the right answer. It's about understanding the why behind the how.
Absolutely. That's so key.
Okay.
They make the abstract tangible, and
Yeah.
that deeper understanding, that's what leads to better learning.
Okay, and we've already talked about this Safe Night Out case study, where accounting students learn by helping their fictional friends start a business.
Yes.
They grapple with concrete challenges like
Right.
fixed costs and cash flow.
Really simple.
Okay.
Making those concepts come to life.
It's all about making those abstract ideas real and relatable.
Real and relatable. Yeah, that's it.
So thinking back to everything we've learned from Made to Stick, what are the key takeaways? What can our listener do to start making their own ideas stickier?
Well, remember that success checklist.
Right, so that's simple, unexpected, concrete, incredible emotional stories.
And stories. Yeah, it's not about using every single one of these principles in every situation.
Right,
It's about understanding how they work together
right.
to create a truly powerful message.
And we started with that, bizarrely sticky kidney heist. But we've seen how these principles apply to, anything. Scientific breakthroughs,
Yes.
business strategies,
Uh-huh.
life lessons we've learned from Southwest Airlines,
Right.
Bill Clinton's campaign, ESOP, the Nature Conservancy, even the Where's the Beef campaign.
That's right.
And we've explored the curse of knowledge, the gap theory of curiosity, the power of schemas
Yes.
and stories, and how concreteness bridges that gap between understanding and action.
Absolutely.
So to leave you with a final thought, think about what your pocketable radio is.
That's good. I like that.
What seems impossible,
Right.
but would spark curiosity and drive you to achieve something truly remarkable.
Love it.
Go make those ideas stick.